Welcome to Full Throttle Talk, the podcast where horsepower meets conversation. From supercars to classic legends, high revving tech to motorsport mayhem, we cover it all. Straight from the driver's seat, whether you're a gearhead or racer or just love the thrill of the open road, you're in the right place. Buckle up, hit the gas, and let's go full throttle into today's episode. Welcome back. This is your favorite weekly podcast. This is Full Throttle Talk, and we have got a fantastic show for you today. I want to start out by thanking all of you for making our Ferrari exclusive, despite Paul's not liking a Ferrari exclusive podcast, making it one of our most viewed podcasts on YouTube. So we get it. We understand what you want. You want, yes, a lot of Porsche information, but something other than Porsche information. That's what we're going to be delivering to you today. So we're going to be talking about a two-car garage. We're going to be doing this or that, latest car news, all kinds of fun stuff. So without any further delay, Greg, where in the world, despite your background, are you today?
I am somewhere in Texas. I'm actually at a Fairfield Inn, 1-star rated Fairfield Inn, which I didn't realize they had 1-star rated Fairfield Inn until I got here. That wasn't my judging. I actually looked it up online to see what is this place being rated. So anyways, yeah, so I'm chasing cars, as you would imagine.
Yes, and that's what you do with a lot of your time. And I want to talk about that on today's podcast because we had some curiosities about how you go about finding cars for your auctions for Sotheby's RM. So get ready in the tea for some really good stories. So Paul, how are you? Anything interesting happened since our last Full Throttle Talk?
Doing great. I don't know if it was our podcast on Ferraris or the hate I got from people about me talking about Porsches, but strangely enough, we got another freaking Ferrari to sell, good or bad. And my goal, as I had mentioned earlier, is to find the inner beauty of the F1 transmission. Yes, it's not liked. Yes, everyone wants a manual, but my question is it really as bad as we say it is? And is the manual worth $100,000 premium? That is the big question, I wonder.
Well, so just to really grind down on this point, I just want the world is bringing you opportunity in the form of red cars from Italy, and you're making fun of them, and yet you still get more consignments for more funny red cars from Italy. I think maybe it's time for you to update your logo and your mindset about Ferraris because they're finding you.
I know. I will try to. I think part of it is a self thing. I don't fit very well in them. But I will say, when you get to the 360s, which are really the 996s of the Ferrari world, when you get to them, I do actually start to fit better. And shockingly, the first thing I did when I got this car, it's a 2002 360 Spider F1, is I went inside and no sticky buttons, which is no sticky anything. And I've seen ones that literally look like you're walking through a beehive and just, gumming onto everything. So that was a pleasant surprise. And despite red and a Spider and a F1, all the things that I pretty much despise, damn, it sounds good.
So
Guys,
can we talk about, I find your comment hilarious, the 996 of the Ferrari world. Expound on that just for a sentence or two.
I think it was just Ferrari. I think a lot of manufacturers in the late 90s, early 2000s did a major shift in design language, in manufacturing. I think all of the manufacturers, BMW, Porsche, Mercedes, everyone was looking at ways to save money, cut costs. The economy was still a little bit on shaky grounds. And Ferrari did it with, I would say, poor quality interior bits, sort of like Porsche did. A design language that was much different than the outgoing 355 that was beloved. And I think in the end, Ferrari did a better job than Porsche did. I think the 360 was a pretty car, but I don't think initially from a performance standpoint, it was earth-shattering like they were expecting.
So it doesn't have Porsche Boxster front end suspension bits or IMS bearing issues.
I don't know what I don't know what
I'm
I don't
liking
know what.
Greg. Let's pick on Paul today. Oh, I like where this is going. This
No,
is
he's
awesome.
right. I don't know what the Achilles heel of the 360s are. I know that the belt service is a heck of a lot cheaper. I think design-wise, they're great. When I drive them, and you get out of your mind that it's not a performance machine from a straight line speed. I think handling they're fun. I would really like to drive a 360 Berlinetta manual on a mountain road. I have yet to do that because I think it would be a very kind of slow car fast experience, possibly.
You
I don't
should
know.
The one,
go ahead, Greg.
go
Sorry.
ahead, Tim.
Oh, I was going to
Oh,
say
I was
you
just
have.
going to say,
We're going to say
You
the
hang
same
up
thing.
first. You
Take
hang
the,
up first.
take the top down on that car. Leave your hat on so you don't have to get a funny tan on your head. And then it sounds like it's got an aftermarket exhaust. I suggested this in text. And
Yep.
when in morning or the night when there's not too much traffic around Costa Mesa and all the rest of it, and drive down the one, and I promise you'll be sold because those 360s with especially if they have aftermarket exhaust are mesmerizingly good as far as the sound goes.
So speaking of aftermarket, this guy, he went in to buy a Stradale, and they or no,
You got it right.
yeah, Stradale. They wouldn't sell it to him because he didn't own a Ferrari. So they ended up, and this was like he bought it used at Ferrari Newport Beach in like 2005. And he ended up having to buy this car to get a shot at maybe a used Stradale in a couple years. Kind of a weird thing. But they talked him into buying brand new Challenge Stradale wheels, Cristo exhaust, all the cool bits, and he's got them in boxes brand new, and he never put them on the car.
Wow, that's crazy. Actually, those wheels are worth a mint.
Yeah, I
That's
think he
incredible.
said that he bought them for Ferrari in 2005 or six. I want to say the wheels were 15 grand new from Ferrari, and he never used them.
So since we're going to do our best to not have you talk about Porsches once today, I'm just kidding, listeners. Don't worry, we'll talk about Porsches. Let's talk about that Ferrari. The miles on it are, and it's
8,000 miles.
okay.
Um,
It's Rosso Corsa, and do you know if it's had its belt service?
it has 2 years ago and 200 miles ago.
Okay.
oh
And
man,
so here's the question. It's got all these brand new parts, Challenge Stradale grill. I know the wheels. I know exhaust, maybe a couple other things. Brand new in the box. Do I put them on the car before selling? Or do I just say these are available extra?
I mean, honestly, the car's a 2002 at this point. I would just keep it stock, truthfully.
Yeah.
I
I mean, it's
because
bone stock.
Yeah, I keep it bone stock because it's getting into the whole, you understand how it works. Even though those are all really sweet parts and they are, I keep it bone stock. Someone's going to, because it's not a ton of miles. What are you asking for it?
I think it's going to be right around 100 grand.
That's insane. I don't get it. No,
Yeah.
seriously, that's batshit
And
crazy.
here's the funny thing is if it was a manual, which he tried to get, and he was like, okay, I want a Stradale. No, you can't have that. How about a used manual? No, we don't have any used ones that are for you. Like literally, if he wanted a shot, I think he was originally thinking, okay, maybe I'll get a 430 manual. He had to buy this car. He didn't
No,
want
I
this
get it.
car.
I get
He
it.
had to buy this used car.
Yeah. Well, I'm just in my mind, I'm thinking, well, Greg, who we have to pick on because he still hasn't bought his SC, or he would have told us. So Greg's SC is going to be scratching 100 grand, or he could buy that Ferrari 360 with the F1 transmission. I mean,
And Greg,
that's
I'll donate a hat for you.
well,
that's a
so one
really
thing
good.
interesting, I ran across, I think it was a 430 the other day, and they had the gated shifter swap. But there, Tim, you probably know, there's a shop, a guy that does it, and it's really well done, and he's making a name for himself and doing these swaps. And yes, it costs a significant amount of money, but basically, if you get your car done by him, you're not going to lose the money,
No.
and it might even add value to the car. So
We
say it costs 50 grand for the swap, maybe it's worth 60 grand more.
I've sold two swapped, a 360 and a 430. And I think at the time, this was maybe 3 years ago, they were, I think it was a $30,000 swap, because you're not changing the box. It's the same gearbox. You're changing the other stuff. The F1 box is the manual just with this, automatic clutch type thing. You have to put extra pedal in, change the gear shifter. It's about a $30,000 swap at the time. Maybe it's more. And I would say you easily got that 30 grand back because the factory manual, like I was looking up with this 360, if this 360, everything the same was a manual, it would be 200 grand, maybe a little more.
Yeah. And you're thinking that even if they did the swap, it would be around 130 roughly. So you're just doing it for your own personal. So personally, I would leave the F1 transmission in it. I know that goes against the zeitgeist, but still I would. I'd leave that thing bone stock.
Well, and I do want to try it out because, the BMW had a very similar thing, the SMG. It was kind of crapped on. No one liked the SMG. and we had a E60 M5, the bangle, ugly, kind of weird M5, which, by the way, I think is one of BMW's best motors. That V10 was a F1 derived motor that went in a sedan. The SMG was designed for that motor, not for the M3, the S54, not for anything else, but that motor. And everyone crapped on it. And the irony is, they did make the E60 M5 with a manual just for the US market. And I know everyone goes, it's almost like the emperor has no clothes. They go, ooh, everyone, you got to get the manual. But when you really talk to BMW guys, the manual wasn't that good in that car. And when you drive the SMG V10 as a manual, don't put it in automatic mode. Just literally, you shift it like a manual. You lift your foot a little bit off the gas when you're doing a shift. It's actually pretty good. And I look at those cars, and those cars are like a great one's 30 grand. Like they're
That's
bargains.
crazy.
And that motor is one of BMW's, I think, best motors.
So hold on. You're telling me that the V10 M5s are 30 grand?
The SMG, like an 04, 05. We sold one a few years ago. It was a one owner, 4,000 mile, just plain silver, no fancy option. Guy took tourist delivery, and we sold it for 36 with 4,000 miles. But the market's come up a little bit. I'll bet you a 40,000 mile, 50,000 mile SMG, well cared for cars, probably in the high 20s to low 30s.
So
Wow.
we could talk. I mean, that's too much of a price difference between that and one new car. Honestly, the prices of these new cars have gotten so extraordinary that it's really, well, let's just pick on modern Ferraris so I can, drive Paul crazy and talk about Ferraris more. So if you look at a 296 GTS versus your 360 Spider, right? So your 360 Spider sits there, a beautiful, amazing car, 100 grand. A new Ferrari 296 GTS is going to be 450 to 500 grand. I'm not so sure there's a $400,000 difference in experience overall. I'm really not. Now I realize time has marched on and all the rest of it, but still, that 360 seems way underpriced, or the other car seems way overpriced. One of the two. And they can both be true
How
at
much
once.
was that 360? How much were those 360s new in 2002? 170,000? Do you remember?
Yeah, no, they were in the 200s, and I remember those cars were selling. We had just we moved out of Ohio when we were living part-time in SoCal, and I remember they were selling for 100 over list. That's what they were selling for. And this is back in the early 2000s too. So if you think about how much that is over list, that's crazy.
Well, so 2002, let's just say it was 200
Wow.
grand to buy the car, that Spider. That's $356,000 in today's money. And how much is the new one, the new version of that?
Well, that's MSRP, right? That's without options. That's base price.
Yeah, I think so.
I think actually they're 385 or something like that.
So they're not far off. I
No,
mean,
isn't that incredible though, if you think about it?
Yeah.
But still, I think it does play into the fact that 360 that you have, I mean, here we are being, selling Paul's cars for him, but that 360 that yeah, exactly. That 360 that you have, that is really a fantastic value. And that seems to me, in my car brain world, doing car brain math, that seems to be undervalued in the market. It doesn't make any sense to me, despite
I
whatever
agree.
your biases are about F1 transmissions. Well, you would say that when you sell it next week, you're going to say how much you hated the F1, but we'll
Well,
wait.
the thing is, and when people ask me, this is all cars, Ferrari, Porsche, any of these, like, what I call enthusiast grade cars. They're not old enough to be collectible, and they're not new enough to be the
Right.
greatest thing. And when you look at cars, they're like 15 to 20 years old. There are some amazing buys, and I equate them to dogs. If you buy a puppy when they're new, they're cute, and then when they're older, they're kind of mature and they have their own charm. And there's an adolescence age of dogs where their ears are too big, their paws are too big, they're clumsy, they're not cute, they're just sort of dorky. And that's like where 15 to 20-year-old cars are in that dog adolescence awkwardness. And when you get past
Are
your
we
biases, you can find some good deals.
are we talking about depreciation trends on pets now? Is that what we're doing?
No, we're comparing dogs, automotive dogs to, canine dogs.
So
Well, so along the lines of Ferrari news, since we had such great reception on our Ferrari Speciale show, I will give you guys an update on that. So the dealers, as I had said I found out actually on Ferrari chat mostly that a lot of the rules that govern the United States dealerships are not necessarily the same throughout the world. So, for example, in the US, it was made very clear that the original owners of 296s and 296, GTBs and GTSs would be given preferential treatment when it came to getting the special version of the 296. And that seems to play out. So if you would, the rule was, and I think it may have changed, that you had to still have the car that you originally bought in your garage. So if you bought your car in 2023, like we did, then the car is going to be pushing 3 or 4 years old by the time your VS arrives. Now, in different parts of the world, I've since learned that's not necessarily true. But what's been fascinating is I've got friends that have way bigger Ferrari histories than we do. So since how old was I when I was 30? In 1999, 2000, when I bought my first Ferrari, that was 22 Ferraris ago. So you'd think that was a really good Ferrari history. That sucks compared to a lot of other people I know have. I know people that have, like Greg does too, massive Ferrari histories, and they weren't able to get cars. They weren't able to get these version speciales because of the dealership and the market where they are. And people don't understand that. And I've tried to explain it to them, like, you need to, establish a different relationship in a different market. You need to go to a market where there's a new Ferrari store where they're trying to build their list. But, the same thing happens in the Porsche world too. If you don't like the experience you're having at your local dealership, if they're being abusive, and this is definitely happening in the Porsche world, especially now the VIP program is gone and the dealerships still get those allocations, they're getting really abusive. Switch dealerships. You can. Now, in the Ferrari world, again, it's difficult to do because the Ferrari dealers can get in serious trouble if they take a new car order for someone that doesn't live in their geographic area. So if you have to, maybe buy a rental property there, maybe get an address there, something. But, you can have, Ferrari guys, you can have two different Ferrari stores, because there's a lot of people that have a house in New York and a house in Florida. So they have registered themselves with Ferrari at both dealerships so they can order from both dealerships. Whereas if you're only in New York, for example, that New York store, if another store tries to register you in Ferrari's CRM, that's like a no-no. So if you are trying to establish multiple relationships because you have multiple residences, then you're going to, and this could be working internationally too. I know people that do this international. You have to get permission from Ferrari to do that. And then once they give you permission, and it's not easy to do, because I have a relationship in Austin, we have a relationship here in Puerto Rico, but once you have it, you're good as gold, and you can order from multiple stores. Paul, do you guys know how it works in the Porsche world?
I don't. And it seems to be, I mean, after the 918 program ended, and I've talked to a few of my clients who were part of that program, I get the feeling that if their dealership they've been dealing with that program doesn't sort of continue on with that in a goodwill sort of fashion, I can see them being less interested in the brand.
Well, I can actually fill you. Probably 3 or 4 VIPs I've known, one of which, I could say this without saying his name, was selling me his allocations when he didn't want them. And he would get multiple allocations. This guy was one of the Ferrari, you guys both know who it is because I mentioned him before. He was one of the largest Porsche, collectors. He isn't anymore. So the way it would work.
Jerry Seinfeld? I do know who that is.
Yeah, you're friends with Jerry too?
Oh yeah, sure.
So the way it works now is the store still gets the allocations, and if the VIP essentially stays in the good graces of the store, then they will probably still get the allocations. But I've heard from every single one of my VIP friends that the stores are now marking up the allocations. So they're not able just to buy the cars for whatever the sticker is. Like the 911 STs, I mean, holy tamale, right? There's one for sale for $850, and I think the sticker on, or the car was 350 grand new. And so if right now, if you're a former VIP and you walk into the store where you're getting all your cars, if you've been selling your cars through them, if you've been sharing the profit with them and all the rest of it, and you've got a really good relationship, it's still up to them to decide whether or not they still want to sell you the cars and still sell you the cars at list. And again, what I'm hearing is they'll still sell you the car. Oh, don't worry, Greg, you're good. We're going to still sell you the car. Normally it's 250,000 over list. For you, because we care about you, it's 75,000 over list. That's what I'm hearing from different folks. You guys heard similar things?
Yeah, I mean, with the STs, I watched people so excited to get 75,000 over list. They thought that was a bargain. And they asked me what I thought, and I'm thinking in a very short period of time that value is gone. No one pays for your markup. They pay for the window sticker. And really now you're just hoping the market holds up or does well. Maybe
But
it
it
will.
has though. Paul,
It has.
you know more than, yeah, look at the the 911R, I mean, there's lots of examples. Those cars, the 2011 4-liter, those cars keep their value. The 4-liters are $1 million now.
That's crazy. That is
I don't know if
insane.
you remember, but when the PT Cruiser came out, they did have a markup.
I do
They
remember
were
that.
they were
Yes.
5 to 10 grand more for a freaking PT Cruiser when it came out. Those did not hold their value. But I do have a buddy that he's close with a Porsche dealership, and the Porsche dealership wanted to pull out of that dealership. It was obviously a multi-brand dealership. And the problem was, it's like they said, well, you're not selling enough Porsches. Well, they're selling what they're given, but they're not giving a lot. And so it's kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
This is not one of the big fancy Porsche dealerships, but still, it can be it sounds like it's a tough road to hoe as a dealership.
I think most
Yeah.
of those guys, most of those dealerships are making no margins on their new cars, make it all basically. I know this has been true for years, but more so now than ever. And it is kind of funny I don't want to say funny, but it is interesting to watch from the sidelines. Some of these VIPs get sort of pissed off and, oh, I can't get these cars, but they've been making more money on the cars that they've been flipping than the dealerships have and Porsche combined. I
Yeah.
don't know
I mean,
if you
one,
think
one of those
it's
relationships,
crazy.
one of those relationships I find interesting is look at the Spike Feresten and Paul Zuckerman. Here they are in LA and they've built a relationship with the Porsche dealer in Clearwater, Florida, of all places. And they're getting the cars they want. It looks like the cars go back there. They do have a good relationship, and I'm sure Clearwater's excited because they get a bunch of publicity from it. And here they are. They had relationships with Porsche dealers here in LA, and I'm curious. I guess those dealers don't care about keeping the local relationship with the automotive celebrity.
Yeah, I agree. And by the way, did you hear your shout out on Spikes a
I
week or so
did.
ago? That was
I
really nice,
did.
wasn't it?
I did. And even Matt mentioned me on his podcast, which is fun. I mean, and Spike has always given me crap about my name for the
I know.
Yeah.
business. And I said, well, you talk about it, so I'll keep it.
Well, exactly. It's memorable. It's incredible marketing. All right, so let's move on, guys. And you guys want to move on to this or that? Have you all
Well, I
prepared
was
stuff?
saying just I was wondering if you wanted to talk about automotive headlines. I had something from last
Okay,
week,
good.
and I
Yeah,
thought it
no,
was
that's
and I thought it was really, really cool. And you probably have saw this because it was over a week ago, but Porsche is now the official car of Laguna Seca.
hmm.
Have you seen that? So, and what people don't understand is it was Mazda for a while, it was WeatherTech, it was all these brands that I didn't think really make sense for Laguna Seca. But by Porsche becoming the official car, and I'm guessing a sponsor, the big thing is Porsche is now going to have a PDC, Porsche Driving Center at
Hmm.
Laguna Seca. So before
Oh,
that, you
that's
had
cool.
you had the Peclas, you had Porsche Experience Center LA, you had the Atlanta one, which are sort of trackettes. They're little tiny tracks. They're just sort of, training wheel tracks. If you really wanted a Porsche experience, when my dad got his 996 Turbo, my mom bought him. They had a PDC at Road Atlanta. That got basically closed down. Now they have one in Birmingham. Birmingham, Alabama, I think, is the one. And so they only had one PDC, true track experience, where you drive Porsche cars, maybe yours, but mostly theirs.
Let me give a shout out. This is something I want everyone to know about because it's just an amazing, wonderful, beautiful experience. And it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. You guys definitely should do it. It's Appalachian driving experience. Greg, you and I talked about this, I think. There is a group of guys, two guys that are in Murphy, North Carolina, and they used to be Porsche club instructors. And I think they actually used to do work at the Atlanta Driving Center too. They have GT Porsches and normal Porsches, and you can go there and you can rent and go on a tour. It's drive and follow, but there's nobody in the car with you. And it is such a freaking wonderful experience because they know all the roads, they know all the cops, frankly. And they have a 2019. He's got a new GT3, 2019 GT3 RS. He's got a GT4, just all these crazy cars, and it's not an arm and a leg. They're not paying for this. I love the guys. The experience was wonderful. Julie and I did it like 5 years ago. But definitely do it. So it's Appalachian Driving Experience. I think I'm getting that URL right. Greg, can you check me on that if it's not too difficult?
Yeah.
I think
And
I
I do
am.
have a quick little Porsche news that I don't want us to talk too long about, but we had the big announcement or the big tease of the Porsche 963 possible street car. So
Yes.
we don't have to talk about that though.
I'm, I'm,
What do you guys
I'm,
think about that though?
well, here's the thing is I'm holding my breath because they did a tease like this before Rennsport Reunion, I don't know, 19 or whenever the one before last. And it was the 935, which it was a race car. It was a race car that didn't qualify for any series, and it was sort of an exhibition thing, and a handful of people got them. It ran at Pikes Peak. Jeff Swart did it. I don't think the car was it was sort of a disappointment, in my opinion. So that news is exciting if it is a street car. Maybe not legal in the US, but a street car, a proper kind of like think of it like the GT1 Porsche, the CLK GTR. Those were awesome because they were basically road legal race cars. And we haven't really seen anything like that. So I'm holding my breath, but I would be pleasantly surprised if that is it.
Have you guys flown through Atlanta, the major airport, the Delta hub? And
Yeah.
have you looked out the windows and
Oh,
seen
Oh yeah.
the Porsches?
the
So
Panamera
the
stuff.
Pan Americas but they supposedly have a courtesy GT3 RS now. That if
Yes.
I don't know how you'll put it all together because I don't even know where you're gonna, put your luggage or whatever.
You got to
But
get a roof rack.
yeah, roof rack. But that's so if you guys are flying through the major Atlantic airport, I think it's Hatsfield, or I don't remember.
Hartsfield.
Hartsfield. Thank you, sir.
I went
Very
through there
good.
yesterday.
I
So
was
very
gonna say, of
familiar.
course, you travel all the time, you know. Yeah, but if you look out the window, you're gonna see Porsches, and supposedly there's a new RS that's running around, which I think is pretty freaking awesome. And if anybody can give us the hookup on how we can actually use that as a courtesy vehicle, of course, you're being driven around because you're around these major jets, but still, that would be a pretty trippy experience.
So
Absolutely.
it is, I know for Delta, you have to be like one of their top echelon people. And if your connection's really tight, they'll have one of those cars or sport utes waiting for you to take you to your next one. I've been on an airplane deplaning when someone jumped out and jumped into one of those. And I'm like, wait, I'm Diamond. Can't I get in this thing? And no, I haven't figured it out yet.
Well, Greg, if you do, please take some video and post it on our channel because I'd love to see you hop in a GT3 RS and, drag race a 747 down a runway to get to your connecting flight.
Speaking of, this is a perfect tee off for us to go this and that because I have some thises and that's that are might be Porsche related. So whichever one, so this or that, viewer or listener, if you're hearing us or watching us for the first time, what we're doing is we're trying to compare and give each other an opportunity to sort of lobby for our opinion. Well, we're asking like, I'm considering this in, not necessarily real life, but considering this or considering that. It doesn't have to be a car, but usually it's cars because we're car nerds. And then we sort of, banter it back and forth and then offer our opinions. So I will go last because I won last time, I think. Didn't I win last time? I'm pretty sure I did. All right. So Greg, you go first, this or that.
Okay, I've got two things here, obviously. I don't know if you saw Donut's recent video where they bought the world's cheapest 911. And I was going to pick this car no matter what it was, but the fact it was a Porsche, I thought, all right, this is perfect. So they bought a 1976 Porsche 911S Coupe project car, and it turns out it was from Dennis Collins, who is big on YouTube. He's out here in Texas, and they bought it for $850. And when you see this thing is an absolute wreck. I mean, everything's dented except for the hood, surprisingly enough. I just can't believe someone would even try to potentially restore this car. But it is a 911S. So that's one. And the second
Greg, can't
one
you come up
is
with normal, ordinary thises or
It-
that's? I mean, does it
Oh,
always have to be this truly strange stuff?
and,
Okay, go
and by
ahead.
the way, Greg, in 1977, they were only 911S. There was
Yeah.
no other option. So it wasn't like O and S.
this is 76.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, right. All right. Does that your second option? So we've got the wrecked project car. Your second option is a great dinner with your family out at your favorite restaurant.
That's actually pretty good. That's actually pretty
Wow.
good.
Wow.
How much?
I mean,
So
I'll go with dinner out because a $700 Porsche project is literally the gift that keeps on giving in the worst possible way.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah, for sure. That's
that is an entry into
$100,000.
$100,000.
That is a $100,000 FU. And yeah, right. No,
Yeah.
I'm going to the dinner out.
Yeah.
How many people are in your
Wow.
family, by the way?
Okay.
I mean, how big's your family? $700 inflation. I mean, a
No,
freaking
no,
egg here in
it's
Puerto Rico is $1.50.
well, it's 850, and I also would imagine shipping charges, so you could have a
Yeah.
really nice
So
meal.
Waffle House for a family of 12.
Dang, man, don't go after Waffle House.
All right. Golden Corral.
There's a
Uh,
there's a Waffle House in North Carolina, and every time we drive by it with our daughter, she just wants to go there so desperately because it sounds so romantic and amazing. A house where you could get any kind of waffle you want. We haven't had the heart to tell her the truth yet.
yeah.
So, real quick Waffle House story. I worked out of Norcross, Georgia for Nabisco for years, and Waffle House headquarters was a mile and a half away. And so that Waffle House was the nicest Waffle House you would ever go in. And at that exit off of I-85, at one point there were 4 Waffle Houses, one at each direction of each exit.
Wow. Like
Yes.
Yeah.
the 4 corners of Waffle House.
Yeah.
Maybe the
And that
Eagles
was
will
like
write a song about it.
the 4 corners of Waffle House.
Perfect.
All right.
All right.
Paul, I'm
So
counting on you for
I
a good
have
one.
a more
Yeah.
realistic thing because I'm basing on this is a dilemma that I've personally thought about. I'm comparing a 996 GT3 to a 991.2 Carrera T manual. And they are both cars I really like. When I bought my 996 GT3, I had a 997.1, and the goal was to have a modern-ish Porsche that would be a Swiss Army knife and do everything. You know, I could use it to go in the mountains. I could use it as a car. Long story short, ended up with the 996 GT3. Adore that car, but it is a one-trick pony. I've taken it on a road trip. It does okay, but that car wants to be driven on curves fast, and that is its entire existence. So I have thought about if I were to buy another Porsche, I think I really kind of pine for a 991.2 Carrera T manual. Interestingly enough, a really so consider same miles, a really well optioned Carrera T manual with great options in color is about the same price as a more boring, same mileage 996 GT3. So I have 2 here. Here's a 19. They made them 18 and 19. Most of them were PDK. Most of them had sunroofs. This is a yellow Carrera T manual, no sunroof, ceramic brakes. It's got these stock seats, which are better because they come with a unique fabric. It's got the lightweight glass in the rear because they didn't order the stupid defrost. It's almost the perfect option, Carrera T, and incredibly rare because most people did not get the ceramic brakes, and most people put a sunroof, and most people put the dumb carbon buckets in the car. That car sold for 97,000 with 33,000 miles. So I would
Mm.
call it, you know, driver enthusiast grade, not super low miles. Meanwhile, an '04 GT3, 33,000 miles, same miles, basalt black. It has the bolt-in roll bars someone put in. No ceramic. No, it does have ceramic brakes. That's its one cool option. Clean Carfax. That car sold for 95,000. So you have a $95,000, 33,000 mile 996 GT3 in pretty boring color, or you have a $96,000, 33 same miles, 33,000 mile Carrera T manual with all the good options and a good color.
Greg, you first.
I would take the Carrera T because I want my horse to have. I want a 6-trick horse. Wait, 1-trick pony, 6-trick pony.
Six
I
trick
want
pony.
multiple things.
Okay.
And I like. I've never had a newer. I've had a 996. Granted, it wasn't a GT3. I mean, that was a great car, but I want the newest, better, faster experience.
And let me add a caveat to this, especially for Tim. This is your only Porsche. You don't have a vintage
Oh, so
car.
now he's
You
screwing
don't
with me.
have like a cool hot rod 550 replica you're building. You don't have like this is your Porsche. You have one Porsche. What you doing?
All right, because I've got an 11-year-old, it'd have to be the T. But if you didn't add the added rules and I had other cars, then I would definitely get the GT3. So but you see what you do? You don't play fair. You just keep on throwing logs in the fire until basically no one can argue against you. I feel sorry for your wife, brother.
Exactly. And this is a tough one. My answer is always when people give me dilemmas which car I should get, my answer is, tongue in cheek, but with a little bit of sincerity, is both. You should get both. Like for instance, I would rather have these two cars than a 991.2 GT3 Touring, which would be about the same price as both of these cars.
No, it would be less, dude. Both of those cars would be 200 grand.
And the other
Like,
one would be 230 or probably. Yeah. So
did you say 991.2?
991.2 Carrera GT3 Touring. I would say they're about 200 grand for an uninteresting color if it's special.
That's true.
And with
Yeah.
33,000 miles, it's going to be 230, 220 in a paint to sample. This was really tough. As much as I love my 996 GT3, I think I would go with the Carrera T, and maybe that's just an age thing, usability, because right now I look at my 996 GT3 and I'm going to take it to the mountains. Whereas if I had this Carrera T, I would maybe do a road trip in it. I would use it as a daily driver more often. So I think I would get more use out of it.
I don't like you saying the age thing since we're all in the same age bracket. So setting that aside, because in your 50s is your new 30s. I don't know if you've read that, but it's true. But it's the thing that makes it difficult is that Carrera T is a special car. And those cars were weird because didn't those things even have thinner glass and all this other crazy
So
stuff?
yeah, they had thinner glass, but here's the biggest problem with that Carrera T was one, the crappiest marketing by everyone. I don't think Porsche explained to the dealers how to do it. Majority of them were dealer spec'd. And the dealer wanted to put on options because they thought they needed a higher MSRP and they thought that's what people wanted. So they only made them for 2 years. Yes, the Carrera T name exists on newer stuff. I really think, I think it's been a bit bastardized because now you can get a Boxer T and a Macan T, and no one even knows what T means. I think it was horrible. Get
It
me
means
started.
Tim. It means Tim.
Yeah. What I thought it should have been, T was for touring. It was the base model. I think it should have been the TS, which was back in the late 60s. If you wanted to go racing, the first version of a GT3 is you got a T with S spec. And it had all the stuff that you cared about for racing. And it was basically a gentleman's race car. And
Well,
that's
isn't that
what
basically what an ST was, right? Or is that just the lore?
No, ST was more about you're going to buy this car and you're going to have Porsche prepare it to compete in
Right.
some FI event.
But Paul, it was based on a T, right?
Yeah, it was based, kind of on a T. It sort of was, but the Trans Am 68 TS, the one like Spike had one. He had the 8-ball car. That was one where you would buy it. It was barely a car. It was as base model as possible, but it had S engine and all these cool S bits. And it wasn't flared. It was just a normal narrow body that was as light as they could. The place where you'd release the trunk, it was filled in. No trunk holes, no door latches, nothing. And I think the Carrera T, like this one I'm looking at, this yellow one, was sort of, for a cool one, it had to be ordered by someone who gave two craps about it. And this is one of the few I've seen. Like ceramic brakes are never on.
I think so far you're winning. So you can stop taking your victory lap, okay?
I
So
won.
Now I've got no, because I have yet to play.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So let me see. I gave myself two scenarios depending how good your guys's was. And so considering that both so far were pretty lame, despite Paul's lobbying, I'm still liking Greg's the best, by the way. All right. So here we go. This or that. Ready? A
Bring it.
2023 BAC Mono R. These were both on Bring a Trailer, by the way. Or
Wait, a what? A what?
you're gonna have to Google it, Greg. BAC Mono.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I love those. Yes. Okay. Got it.
Yes. Yeah, you and I've talked about them before. Or a 2024 Roma Spider, and there's one that just sold, which had a high MSRP. You guys should look on Bring a Trailer so you guys can see both of them. The Ferrari sold a few days ago. It wasn't British Racing green, but it was a dark green with a cognac interior, a gorgeous car. Don't grimace, Paul. It's unsightly. And or the BAC Mono.
I mean, the BAC Mono, to me, it looks like when you were a kid and you wanted roller skates and your parents didn't. So they would buy you these things you'd strap onto your existing tennis shoes. So your tennis shoes became roller skates. Oh, um,
I,
wow.
I saw one of these in DC the other day at a Cars and Coffee. The guy drove it up, and it was just incredible.
Are we
Really,
going to
really
play by the
cool.
rules, children? This is the rules.
Oh,
You guys have
So,
to
and what
decide.
was, and then
You
there
have to
was a
decide which one you
Ferrari
want. The Ferrari,
Roma Spider.
the Ferrari Roma Spider, and you can jump on, bring a trailer, and you can see the, the green one I'm talking about because I thought it was beautiful. That's for it. Didn't sell, if I remember. Neither one of these sold, by the way, but they didn't. The last bid was essentially within like 15 grand of each other. I just thought how funny it is for and they're not cheap, right? You're talking about $300,000 cars here. But if someone's got 300,000, and if he's of the mind, which he wouldn't be, of course, because this is insane comparison, but trying to decide between a one-seater BAC Mono or a Roma Spider, which would he choose? And so
So,
that's
so
see,
do you
this
want
is
me
too
to,
easy.
do you want me to first tell you which I would choose or why you lost?
which would you choose? And you have to sell it to the listeners and the viewers.
I mean,
I would,
I
I
mean,
would pick.
go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Greg. No, go
All right.
ahead. I'm still throwing up in my mouth.
I would pick the Roma Spider for I think obvious reasons. The Bach is just it's a race car. It's rough as hell. The guy he just said, man, he could barely get it to that cruising just on the streets around DC. He was just beat to death. It's a crazy hyper thing, And I've never had a Ferrari. Romas are beautiful. I love a Spider. I can take my wife with me. I can turn on the AC. I can close the top. I can drive it in the rain. So that's the starting list. So it sounds like I won this whole contest. So all right, off to you, Paul.
um, you came in a very close second, Greg. You didn't win, but yours was a good effort. Well, first of all, the Roma Spider. If it was a Roma coupe, it would be even easier. It's one of the few Ferraris I like because I don't know enough to know that like I remember when the California came out, people hated on it. I didn't get it. We sold one. I drove it. I'm like, man, this drives so much better than the 360 or 430. But that being said, two reasons I like the Roma. I think it's pretty, and for once they use a name, not a number, as the. I mean, I love names of cars. American cars will do that. The Blackwing. Even Americans name their motors. The Coyote or the Iron Duke or whatever. And all the Europeans just put numbers that just literally lose me. So I love the name Roma. I think the car's pretty. It wins over the, whatever that BAC Mono is because there's nothing. I mean, it makes my GT3 look like a lovely touring car. This
I
thing,
thought you guys were drivers. You guys are just not real drive.
no,
Y'all,
but
y'all are just you're just
that's an
fake.
F1 car. Like I wouldn't drive
That's
that.
the
I don't want to
point.
be seen in it. No, there's. I mean,
This
I think I
this
like it as a design study. I think
Paul,
it's
Paul,
really
you do
pretty.
know what the whole European most car number nomenclature Mickey Mouse is about. You're just being facetious, right?
Yeah, I know what it's about, but I still miss the fact that there was names for cars. Like
Oh
Ferrari
yeah,
name, like Italians. I mean, the Lamborghini named their cars after
yeah.
special bulls, and I always thought that was sort of charming. I mean, even remember when Volkswagen was naming their cars after winds and natural disasters? Or
Rocco and golf.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So I kind of miss that. I think it makes the cars a little more fun and less serious. Um, but the Bach Mono thing is very cool. I just
Have you guys seen one? I know Greg said he has seen one. Have you ever seen one?
I think I saw one at the Peterson like on display. They were doing
they're
they had
wicked.
like the
They're really cool.
they had like the Zinger, that Zinger car and
Yeah.
sort of
Oh
like
yeah.
stuff like that. Which I think are great because those are the cars that end up inspiring other designers to do other things. I mean, I look at elements of that. I mean, how cool would it be if your modern sports car had exposed coilover suspension? Like
Well,
very
but so
cool.
you guys are thinking of, and maybe this is the way to think of it, is that if you had this as your only car, right? Who's the hell's going to choose the Bach Mono over a Ferrari for the everyday car? But if you have multiple cars, because the guys
No.
that are considering this or that have multiple cars, and
No,
you'd
no,
still,
no. I'm considering it as another car. Like I keep everything I have and I add this to it. I would, I mean, it would be great as a showpiece in our showroom and people would come in and look at it. But I mean, I would feel uncomfortable driving it because it would be like I would constantly be saying, I'm not the guy you think I am that's driving this. And then I'm sure dynamically in the mountains, it would be insane. But then again, the problem with a lot of these new cars and why I like old cars is to get the fizzy feeling, you have to be going at outrageous speeds because the cars are so good. And so I kind of like understand as, maybe it's grumpy old me, but a small, slow car fast is making a lot more sense. And I mean, I don't go to the track anymore. So, which seems to be where that car excels. But honestly, I hate the idea of being in an open car on the track. So,
So if I had to choose
And you,
just if I had to choose just to torment you guys, I would choose the BAC Mono because I've driven one once and it was exhilarating. It was a really crazy good experience. But yes, the use case for it, if walking into your garage and you had other choices, it's probably not the set of keys you're going to be, or wherever the hell it is, use to start it. It's probably going to be the last thing you're going to choose. And the very fact that it only has, okay, if you guys had to choose between a BAC Mono and an Ariel Atom, what would you choose? And it has two seats.
what? That's a tough
I'll
one.
tell you right now, I would take public transportation.
I would do the BAC Mono.
Okay. All right. So we're going to move on. Let's talk about auction results. What have you guys seen sell in the past week? However you guys want to spin this, we never really follow the rules when we get to the auction stuff that you thought was any trends you guys are watching. And Greg, I'm going to lean into you on this one because I know you are constantly looking at people's collections, constantly valuing all kinds of cars for the sake of, obviously auctions. What are the macro trends? And don't worry about being politically correct that you're seeing happening in the overall car market. For us ignoramuses out there, except for Paul, obviously, who's in the game too, but with Porsches mostly.
I don't want to like repeat myself. I feel like I'm kind of saying the same thing every time, but I will kind of say, Haggerty came out with their one of the recent updates where they had 5 cars that were declining in value, and two of the 5 are the cars behind me, the Mustang and the GTO. And I was like, I don't know if I buy that. Not because I own the cars, but I really think that 60s muscle cars and pony cars and sports cars is kind of a sweet spot that will continue on for a long time. They have ample power. You can add the accessories you want really fairly easily. They're iconic looking. You can work on them for a lot of reasons. I think those will kind of maintain. But Mecum right now is happening in Indy. I plan on going there maybe Friday or sometime next week. And I just looked at their results from this last weekend. And so I have a K code behind me. That's the highest performance Mustang of 65. They had a K code convertible Hammer for $55,000. That's an $85,000 to $100,000 car all day. And just to prove that point, the lot right before it was the base model V8, and it sold for $5,000 less. I'm like, someone got an absolute steal on this K code convertible at Mecum. And that's the thing about I consider Mecum kind of like the Manheim of classic car auction houses because they'll literally take anything.
Can I ask you a question about something you just said?
Yeah,
Because I'm curious what your guys' take is on this. Because I hear people say that cars are generational purchases, and the reason the '80s cars are so popular is because Generation X and the youngest generation of blah blah blah. I mean, car values follow the buyer's preferences for when they were teenagers. Everyone's heard that. Why wouldn't the muscle cars have had their day in the sun? Considering the fact that those cars, I mean, you're kind of on the young end for liking muscle cars. You are. So why would the muscle car values not fall per Haggerty's prediction based on the demographic of the people who've traditionally been buying those? Explain to me, what am I missing?
well, it could be what I'm missing, honestly. I just feel like, well, go past the muscle cars. What do you have? You have the 70s, you have the 80s, you have slow cars, you have unaspiring stuff, you have parts that are hard to get. You know, there's it's 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 a sweet spot, I guess. You can still work on them. So I don't know. To me, I just feel like that's a generation of cars that will do a little better than the 50s because the 50s is just stuff that slower, some 6-volt stuff, um, not as easy to kind of make it your own, maybe the best
Well,
way to put it.
and let me throw this out there because I know I'm curious what Paul's going to say too. So the other challenge you have with American muscle cars is it's not an international market outside of maybe Australia and some weirdos in Europe,
Sure.
because you
Yeah.
don't see, like, it's just an American market. So you have an aging demographic. Granted, they're very affluent, but you have an aging demographic. They probably already have their muscle cars. Nobody else in the world really wants those things. I don't see how there's going to be much of a, if you care about values. Now, obviously emotions, that's completely, but yeah. What do you think, Paul?
I mean, I think we're seeing this in a lot of different markets. I see it with the 356 market. I'm even seeing it with the long hood market. I just think people age out. There's collector grade cars that will always do well, and the people that want to experience something as an enthusiast, I think they're not there. And I think social media accelerates this sort of aging out process, unfortunately, because I think there's
Why?
some great cars. Because I think they're so quick to change trends.
Hmm.
Before it took a long time, like to go, like I remember the Woody market when the Woody market distinctly died, in the .com era. But it was actually, when you really looked at it, it was dying for a decade. Now it's, I look at perfect example 356s. We just got kind of a mild outlaw 356. Now, not long ago, we had just a regular stock C coupe, which was a great like starter 356. No one blinked twice at that, but the outlaw one, they got excited. Now, the outlaw 356 world's a little bit preserved thanks to guys like Rod Emery that have kind of reinvigorated health. And even, Will Hoyt's got in the game by building a do-it-yourself 2-liter hot rod motor. Um, but then when you get to, I mean, maybe with the muscle cars, you got the what is it, the Ring Brothers and stuff like that that are doing their versions. But I think
Those
their
are
version,
$1 million cars
but I
though.
was about to say their versions are so out of reach. Whereas you can buy a 356, you can go buy, the Will Hoyt kit done and installed is 50 grand, which is a lot of money. But for, in the 150 range, you can have a cool hot rod, not $1 million. I think for any of these, markets that are kind of dying out or aging out, they almost need someone to reinvigorate health into them and build a product that's, I mean, it's hard to say that 200,000 sounds reasonable, but it is compared to seven figures.
Well, that happened with the old
Yeah.
911s too. That happened with the long hoods, and that happened with a lot. I remember when you and I first met forever ago. Um, the Magnus, actually, give him credit, right? He actually made long hoods and old ratted out 911s. They had always been hot rods. They'd always been popular. There'd always been some guys, mostly in Southern California, and they kind of resented him. I remember that very clearly because he was sort of getting all the limelight, even though our group had been around forever. But
Yep.
he did bring the world to appreciating old 911s. And I think he really has made them cool for a new generation. So that could happen with the Mustangs too and whatnot.
Yeah, I
Well, you
agree.
have Revology that's, they're doing the Singer version. I think the same private equity firm owns both Singer, or a large investor in Singer, as well as Revology, and they do all the Mustangs and such. But maybe I'm a hopeless optimist, I guess, but I think the more we go to electrification or hybridization, I think people will want stuff they can actually work on. I ran into a 25-year-old guy at Keels and Wheels in Houston 2 weekends ago, and he was just flipping out over the brass era cars. And he knew more about those cars than probably I did. And I'm like, you're an unusual dude. I want you on my podcast.
I was going
So,
to say, you guys are brothers from a different mother.
Wow.
the other thing, real quick, I saw that was interesting. Well, also at that, you got to pick your auction time frame. So like this K code sold really, really soft on a Saturday, the first Saturday of Mecum. Like 10 lots ahead of it was a 2019 Toyota Camry. So I'm like, I don't know that you're drawing all the buyers you want,
Who
Another
had
car
the
that
guts to
surprised,
put a freaking Camry in an auction?
why
God
would
bless
they
Mecum, man.
accept it? Yeah.
Yeah,
The other one that
exactly.
surprised me was which might go more towards the next generation, a 1990 Corvette Zero One sold for 60 grand. And that's the fourth highest sale ever I could find at a public
How many
auction.
miles were on that one?
It was like 2,000. It wasn't
Okay.
See
crazy low. It was
that's
low, but not crazy
but
low.
that's a cool car. That had a hand-built Yamaha motor in it. I don't remember how much horsepower those things had, but those things were the legitimate wide body. I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of cool.
I mean, wasn't
Oh, I
that
would love
kind
to
of
have
the
one.
spiritual successor of the famous, L88? What is it,
Yep.
68? I mean, that was kind of the first time, in a long time Corvette did something really, really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, do you want me to talk about my auction results and pick on 993s like I like to do?
Okay, let's go for it. So this next segment, listeners and viewers, we're going to be focusing on what we saw. We just talked about big auction trends, but we're going to pick out things that we either thought were well bought or well sold. And of course, Paul's not going to follow the instructions and going to do whatever he wants to do, and that's just fine. Go for
No,
it.
I have two things. One is I think there's actually two well bots. The 993 I want to pick on. There was last week on Bring a Trailer, 996 993 96 4S 6-speed manual, black, gray, probably the least desirable, 70,000 miles, but like a really clean car. It was a really clean car. It was geared towards someone who wants a wide body 993 experience. It sold for 126 grand. But when I started looking at the S's, and this is my frustration, when people tell me they want I want a 993 C2S manual, I ask them why. They think it's a better car. People don't realize a 993 C2S is a narrow body with flares. That is it. It doesn't even come with the 18-inch wheels. It comes standard with a 17 with like 50 millimeter spacers to push the rears out. It's the same wheels that comes on the regular narrow body. And the 4S comes with the turbo suspension, the turbo brakes, the 18-inch wheels. It literally comes with everything that came on the turbo but the engine. And meanwhile, they sell consistently for 25 to 30% less. And then that's for enthusiast grade. When you get into collector grade, we're talking 40 to 50% less. And I can understand, and it's not like they're super low production, but all of a sudden, when I ask people why they want this, and they seem to me to be an enthusiast, they just, wax poetic about, oh, it's the best version, it's lighter, it's this and that. And I remember talking to Pat Long when he bought a narrow body for me, and he said, the narrow body 95 is the best car. Like if you were a driver, that is the best car. And if you want more power, get the turbo. And I have to agree with him. So I get frustrated. I look at this 4S, it sold for 126. If it was a 2S, it would have been 165. And I'm scratching my head going, first of all, neither of them are a six-figure experience, let alone one being almost a $200,000 experience. Now on the other end, so I think they're still over bloated, but they'll never come down. I think the buy, and there was one that sold yesterday, is a 997.1 GT2. They're stuck at $250,000, which is a lot of money, but like they made so few of those cars. It's the last GT2 with the manual. It is literally, I think, one of the scariest modern Porsches to drive. Whereas the 996 GT3 was scary and the 997 GT3 toned it down, I don't think they toned anything down. I think the 997 GT2 takes whatever the 996 GT2 did and just turned it up another couple notches of volume. Very few were ordered. Unfortunately, most of them were black. And a driver enthusiast grade with 20, 30,000 miles is $250,000 all day long, and they literally haven't done anything in the market.
When interest rates drop, cars like what you're just describing are going to go through the roof. The only thing that's holding cars like that back now are basically people that are, this or that as far as where they're going to get the money. Because you're right. Because for $250,000, that's so much freaking money just to say, oh, it's not a big deal. But that's the price of, my beloved 718 Spider RS, basically. A really nice one of those is 230, something like that. Or you can get a GT2. Now, that was a GT2, not a GT2 RS, right?
Well, no, GT2 RS was only 997.2.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah.
And those are, and I look at the delta between those, the RS 4.0s, all the 997.2 Metzger engine cars we're talking minimum 3 to 4 times the price of this. And then when you look at a 996 GT2, they hover right around 200 to 225. Like, I don't get why the 997.1 GT2s, so that's, I think, '08, it might have been '08 only, why they're so cheap.
Well, this is what's going to be coming up in value. These are the cars that are a little too frothy right now. They're going to, the buyers are going to say, I don't get the value difference between this and that. That would have been a good this or that for you for next week, and they're going to be buying the cars like what you just said. So, I mean, that's a good example. Yeah, definitely.
And by the way, just production numbers, 1,200 units worldwide, only 240 of those came to the U.S.
That's insane. That is really crazy. So
no, it's 240 to North America. And 195 are actually U.S. cars. So low production. Like that's the lowest Metzger engine production thing. I mean, they made more GT3 RS 4.0s than that, considerably more. So if I had $250,000 burn a hole, I'd go buy one.
I think we should have a podcast episode called the cheapest six-figure driving experience.
Exactly. That's a good idea. All right.
I'm
so
all for it.
Greg, do you have anything to contribute, or you already did talk about auction stuff? It's up to you.
I went ahead, I gave you my high and my low. K code was the surprise buy, and the ZR1, what's the surprise sell?
All right, so here's my contribution. There was and this closed yesterday, and I was really watching this because I thought it was fascinating. There was a 2023 Signal Green 718 Cayman GT4 RS that sold for 208. And I'm only going to point this out that car sold for, I believe, less than what the owner paid, not including auction fees and taxes and all the rest of it. But those cars, not even that long ago, now everything was selling more during COVID era, but those cars were selling for $100,000 more than that not long ago. And that's a PTS color. And I thought, for 200 grand, that's going to be a really nice, there's probably not a lot of downside in that. You probably don't have to worry about that's a free experience aside from maintenance and upkeep and insurance, in my opinion. Have you guys driven a GT4 RS? Have either one of you?
No, just a GT4. And I didn't get to drive it in a dynamic environment, like just freeway.
I would love, especially your opinion, Paul, because you're such a Porsche nerd. I would love to hear your feedback on what you thought that was compared to a GT3, because I'll give you this suggestion that you will love it even more than a 911. I'll almost guarantee you that'll be true.
No, possibly. And I'm curious your take on this. I mean, I think I had more people call me with their allocation or their recent purchase of one of those wanting to flip them. And it felt like to me the GT4 RS was like the way for someone who didn't have the Porsche lottery ticket to try to get into the flipping game. And I think they were all disappointed.
That wasn't my experience personally.
I mean, but I'm just saying
that might be that's your Southern California perspective, probably, because that's like
that's who called me. Like, I got more calls on people who had the allocation that wanted to sell it. And if I knew someone, or they got delivery of the car and they're not going to put any miles on it, or they got an allocation, they were ordering it, and what should I order? And everything was about how can I get in the flipping game. And they were people that normally weren't flippers. They just thought it as, ooh, I got an allocation, because they couldn't get a GT3 type allocation to do that with.
We talked about this a couple of shows ago. How many of those people were having cold feet because their economic situations had changed, right? They ordered the cars, they got the allocations, and now they're just trying to buy it to sell it so that in case they couldn't afford it. I think there's a fair number of those.
I mean, the ones I saw were really motivated by, like, can I make a quick buck? And that was their motivation.
And you could for a while on those when those first came out. You could make a quick buck on those for sure.
Not anymore.
I'm pining over a GT4. Can you tell me why that's a dumb idea?
Which generation? A new one or a 16?
Like a 16 Cayman GT4.
I mean, honestly,
hold on, I'm still not clear. Are we talking about the latest generation of 718 or one of the previous ones? He's talking about an older one.
He's talking about 16, the first technical generation of the GT4.
Is that what you're talking about though? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And actually, Greg, I agree with you. My only problem is I look at the prices and they're not much different. I mean, they're like 100 grand right now, like maybe a little over 100 grand. And for 115, maybe a not as good spec'd one or not as good color, you can get the newer version. And for me, it's like I would choose the 16, but I think the financial difference isn't enough to warrant the 16.
Okay. I just think, go ahead.
So we were talking about the Appalachian driving experience earlier, and I had driven one of their GT4s, and it wasn't an RS. And everyone says, "Oh, the long gearing will ruin the experience." Paul's disagreeing, and that's fine. But the long gearing on the really curvy roads does kind of diminish the experience, especially if you drive it next to an RS or a newer car that has the RS with the different settings to make it shift even quicker. So the long gearing, if you were to find a GT4 that was not so pricey that you really liked, and you could have the transmission re-geared, then you got something pretty special, I think. Paul?
I have a 2-word answer: drive faster. Solves all gearing issues.
Oh, see, he was ready for that one. All right, good. So let's move on. I'm waiting for your two-car garage. So this is the segment where we are going to sort of create a story for you, and we're then going to try to choose what the perfect two-car garage is for usually the couple or the scenario that we're painting out for you. And last week I got it started and presented mine, and now Paul has prepared something for all of our bemusement. Go for it, sir.
Sure. And first of all, this is not AI created. This is just
That is
me
Paul making fun of
rambling.
me because yes, I did use Grok on the sarcastic setting last week to write mine. And as I was reading it out loud, it was quite obvious the day I wrote it. So yes, Paul, you got your dig in.
All right, so here it is. This character is named Forrest, and he grew up in the Pacific Northwest. He has a natural love of the outdoors. This doesn't mean he's ready to hike across Europe and live in youth hostels or even climb Kilimanjaro. He just likes the mountains. He enjoys biking, but his real passion is driving the mountain roads. He grew up going to Cars and Coffee with his dad, and that's just part of his weekend routine. He still continues. As a single 30-something, he's on his own, and he's got a good job designing organic feed for cattle, and he's making homemade kombucha for his local farmers market. Yes, he loves the environment, but not enough to drive an Ed Bagley Jr. Tic Tac looking electric human pod. Forrest is an adrenaline speed junkie, but still okay with plugging his car in at night, not because he loves the environment that much, but mostly because he hates small talk at gas stations. After designing the killer hybrid marijuana strain for his friend's cannabis farm that makes him a High Times famous magazine cover, he gets a $100,000 bonus, which he's going to spend on his perfect two-car garage. He needs a daily driver that's also fun on the back roads and can haul his mountain bike with his pug named Stoner, as well as a 25 years old or older for taking on vintage style car rallies and maybe the occasional DE or autocross, but mostly for vintage rallies. What's Forrest going to buy?
Greg, you got to go first because I had thought about this the other night, but unfortunately I don't remember my answer. So I have to look at my notes.
Way to be prepared. All right. So I came up with one on my own, and then I was really struggling for the other one. And so I put it into chat, and you'll find the answer really funny. All right. So the one I came up on my own was a 1991 Volkswagen Golf Country 5-speed. You guys know of this car?
Oh, sure. We didn't get them in the US, but they're cool.
I did not know about these until I judged at Audrain. I judged the young timers this last year, and there was one there like 6,500 miles on it. So you're talking jacked up 4x4 Golf. You know, it's got the brush guard on the front. I think it even had one over the rear taillights, had a roof rack, and I just fell in love with that thing. I thought that thing was freaking awesome. So, like you
I've
said,
seen
Euro
them in the
spec.
South. A lot of them were in South Africa. They're a big South Africa market car. I don't know.
Okay.
Was yours right-hand drive or was it still
It was
left-hand?
left-hand drive. Yeah, and they're inexpensive. I found two on Bring a Trailer for like 20 grand.
Yep.
And so that was really, really cool. And so I was really struggling on the second one.
So wait, was that be his 25-year older car that he would maybe take on DE or autocross?
No. That would be like kind of the everyday thing. All right, so the weekend weapon. Now, this is what ChatGPT came up with. Worth $15,000 to $20,000, a 1985 Porsche 944. So here's why it fits. Forrest wants something analog, tossable, and vintage rally approved. The 944 is perfectly balanced, DIY friendly, and cooler than anything under 20K has a right to be. He'll add hawk pads, new bushings, and fresh fluids and hit a local DE or autocross without worry. Martini livery decals optional. It looks great in faded guards red or with a tasteful patina. So it did not reference a turbo. Is that okay?
Yeah. So nothing that modern. You
No,
chose two
no.
vintage cars. Awesome.
Yep.
I like that. I do like that. Does a great garage. I agree. Tim, what do you got?
Well, I'm not going to follow your rules, of course, because I'm getting even.
Yeah.
All right. So for the daily, because he's got Stoner. So you didn't take Stoner into consideration. I mean, he's this little pug. Yeah. Now, of course, our good friend here, he's been trying out all this interesting cannabis strains on Stoner, thus the name. So let's just be honest. This dog's maybe what we'd call a lower IQ pug. Not that they're,
But the pug has no glaucoma, zero whatsoever.
he has no glaucoma, no pains, and he has amazing fur and he never farts. I mean, it turns out marijuana has all these amazing cures. All right. So I'm not following your rules too much, but you'll appreciate, I think, my choices. All right. So number one, the new Volkswagen van ID Buzz for a driver. Okay.
Mm.
It's all
Nice.
electric because he's going to be around all those other EV save the world, green types. I figured that would be a good one. Plenty of room for Stoner to, have a party. That's, you got to take in consideration the pug. All
For
right. Now,
Stoner's hookah.
yeah, exactly. And look, bro can throw some stickers on. He can roll the hippie look. He can go up to frickin' Echelon and Big Sur, and everyone will think he's jamming out. He's got to get the two-color one. He can't just do one color. Yeah, I mean, there you go. Next, as far as the weekend sports car type, and again, I'm assuming bro's going to want to take Stoner with him everywhere. So I'm not going to choose something that's going to make Stoner, have an unpleasant experience. You could tell Julie helped me with these because we have a French bulldog. All right, number one I came up with would be a Honda Civic. I couldn't choose between these three, just being honest. A Subaru WRX. Oh, that's been a little bit hot rodded because those cars are cool. Not a 206 or one of these that sell for, $100,000. Just a Subaru WRX, a Honda Civic Type R, and not the new one that actually looks kind of nice. The other one that looks like a monster, the ugly one with the four different exhaust pipes for some unknown reason, the crazy ass. This is the other thing. So the last generation Honda Civic Type R, or the Toyota GR Corolla. And I think,
Mm.
so all three of those, the Subaru is the only one that's all-wheel drive. Oh, no, the Subaru and the Toyota are all-wheel drive.
Is there
So,
any that's 2000 or older?
well, you could get a Subaru WRX that's going to be right around there, right?
Okay,
And you could buy a Honda Civic Si and not a Type R, but no, as far as the GR goes, no. So you could get one of those older ones. Like I said, I'm trying to bend your rules.
that's great. I like them both. Both good choices. So what I chose was the new Ford Mach-E Rally as his daily driver, kind of put his mountain bike, do everything with it.
Is it at 100 grand? How much
No,
is that?
no,
No, there's like
a
50.
A 40, I found a beautiful green one with 8,000 miles with the
Oh,
extended warranty for 45 grand. I think
nice.
they're bargains. And every automotive journalist, like Matt Farah, Johnny Lieberman, and a few others, all rave about that car. It's fun on a back road. It's easy to live with because it's in a rally thing. It sort of becomes this urban thing where you can sort of take anywhere, drive over curbs.
It looks kind of cool too, for being honest.
Looks bitchin'. I think Matt brought one up to Good Vibes Breakfast Club and I got to sit in it and look at it. And it's just, I mean, literally, if I had a good use case for a car like that, I would really, really consider it. I think they're bargains. And I bet you in a year, they're 30 grand, for sure. And I was really tough. The two I was looking at was that or the Kia EV6 GT, which is an insanely fast car. For 50 grand, you've got a 0 to 63-second car that does everything right.
Bro, Stoner is going to be blowing chunks on the inside of that thing 24/7.
We're
You are
gonna get them
not.
like one of those things for a boats that keep you level, like a gyroscopic
Have you seen a
cradle.
pug's eyeballs? They're already going in different directions, and now you have them fighting G forces.
I'll just slip him a couple edibles and he'll be fine. And then as my weekend car for Forest, a higher mileage, little bit ratty Porsche 968 Club Sport. I still think those are good buys.
How are those in that price range?
No, they're when you go to like classic.com, the average is 55 grand. There's some in the 40s. They're not like the yellow and the blue and the oh my
In
god
what
colors.
country?
No, US. But I mean they're hard to find, but they don't sell very many, but you can get a black one for right around a black with like 100,000 to 150,000 kilometers for about 50 grand. And in
So
fact,
you
I have a client of mine who just bought a yellow one, went through the importation, got it in here. I think got it from Canada, and it was a yellow, a little higher miles, but really clean. And with Club Sports, if you don't get the ones with the really expensive ones have the seats and the roll bar and that, but if you get them more streetable, they're less desirable. And he got that one for in the 50s, so they're out there. They're just not the collectible ones.
didn't they have a suspension option on those two, a M30? I remember a 30.
Mo30 was the 968 street one, which very few were ordered with it. But the Club Sports came with all that. They came with the magnesium Cup One looking wheels. They came with the Mo30 suspension. The ones that really changed the prices did it. You could get them with air conditioning. The ones that are worth more are like Maritime Blue, no air conditioning, the 935 lollipop looking seats, the roll bars, the ones that were literally like a homologated race car, but they made ones that were definitely more touring, and they're great. I think, outside of cost of maintenance, and rarity of parts. I think they're.
So I want you to argue because those are really good, and I think you may have won. Damn it, again. So I want you to argue why you would want to buy if you could have only one car. Why I'd want to buy the Porsche over the EV. Why would I want to buy a 30-year-old Porsche, the 968 that you just said, which they are absolutely brilliant cars to drive, unbelievably good values, and very, very over-engineered, like insanely well built. Just sit in one that's ancient and it's going to feel better than, anything that's modern practically. But why would you choose to buy that as your daily over an EV? Because we have listeners that are going to be asking themselves that very question.
I think because you can do more things with it. You can do all. I mean, like I said, I have a 944 Turbo S, and it's literally the same experience. The 968 is just everything a little bit better. But I would say if you're getting not a club sport, the only reason I didn't choose the 968 was because it was a little more GT than I wanted. I wanted something a little sportier. I think the club sport is a little more
But why
sporty.
would I? But I'm asking you because a lot of people for the same money are going to be asking themselves for 50 grand, I could just go out and hit the
Because
easy
you can
button.
do more stuff. You can take it on a rally. You can, like a vintage rally or one of these, driving excursions I
But
do.
let's do the good and the evil on the shoulder, right? So I'm worried that the Porsche is going to break down a lot. I'm worried that it's going to leave me stranded. I'm worried, blah 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 blah, all the things. So
I
explain to
don't
me.
think here's the thing is knock on wood, driving my cars, 944 and 928 and my 911, all 80s cars, all old, all with over, 100,000 miles, one with 200,000 miles. Knock on wood, I've never been stranded on a long touring event. I've never been on a tow truck with one of those cars. Now, the devil's advocate part of that is they go in for extreme amount of maintenance constantly. I'm way ahead of whatever might break because I don't want to have the braking. And I think the challenge with especially transaxle cars, 928s, 944s, 968s, is they have gone through lack of preemptive um, maintenance. And so people go, oh, they're really expensive. I don't think they're more expensive than a 911. I think there's a lot of catch up to be done to get them to the point where they're reliable like a 911. And granted, I would say cost wise, now that I've got them all three cars at the same kind of level of maintenance, they all are about the same cost of maintenance.
There's also something to take in when you look at the way cars are being engineered now. Everything is there's hardly. Can you guys think of one modern car that's not designed to be that doesn't have planned obsolescence written all over it? Seriously, think of one. Think of one modern mass-produced car that does not that is going to be something that people are going to be able to constantly replenish, like a car that was built when everything was made out of metal, like an 80s car.
F-150 truck.
Yeah, probably. That's about it.
That's
Yeah.
about it.
But you
Something that's going to be used
No,
as a
for
work
sure.
vehicle.
But think about all these electric cars. They're throwaway cars. I don't think there's going to
Oh
be
yeah.
any after. Yeah, they are. It just
They're literally iPhones with wheels.
and that's a strange mindset. So arguing for if you live in an environment, because we've had questions like this on Instagram, this or that, right? So if you live in an environment like where Paul does, where there's a lot of people that know how to work on them, and there's a lot of people that have experience with them, you should probably buy an older car. And if you look at the if setting aside the ownership experience of, owning an older, whatever it is, BMW or Porsche or whatever, argue whether it's superior, the community and all the rest of it. But if you look at the depreciation cost of the new car versus the maintenance cost of the old car, I would venture a guess that if you like what Paul was saying, if you're ahead of the maintenance cycle and you're not having to pay for any big repairs, you're going to be way better off than the old car. And if the old car if you happen to buy the old car at the right time on the appreciation depreciation curve, then you're actually going to make money on it. And you could zero out all of your automotive ownership expenses, including insurance.
I mean, and think about it. Up until last year, when we bought my wife a new Volvo, my newest car was over 20 years old. And I was fine with that. Now, granted, when we would take a long road trip, something that's not car related, just visiting family or whatever, I would just go to Turo and rent something that was, a 5-year-old luxury thing. I would drive it, or even go to major rental car company and drive it, do our road trip, no hassle, give it back, and then go back to my vintage cars for everything, for going to LA, going to the mountains, visiting family. It wasn't until recently my wife actually needed something that wasn't ancient.
Well, that's going to be the trend. I think you're going to see a lot of this, how far are we from having full on, EV self-driving, essentially taxis, whatever the hell you want to call them. It's right there. So
Yep.
again, this goes to the fact that I think you're going to see especially when interest rates drop, you're going to see a resurgence of the values of these old cars. And I think it's going to be unprecedented. People aren't expecting it to happen. I'll give you guys just from an interesting, a novice's perspective. We started this podcast, what was it, guys, 90 days ago? And the amount of tension we have from people, the amount of enthusiasm and interest from all age groups and older German cars primarily is ridiculous. I mean, these guys weren't surprised, but I was blown away, especially old 911s. Oh my gosh. There is a never ending stream of people that want nothing but old Porsche news. It was just not like anything I'd ever experienced before.
Except one Ferrari commenter.
No, there's been more than that. But I mean, look, I mean, if you just keeping it real, if you could, the number of people that like Ferraris is like this compared to the number of people that like old Porsches. It's insane. Yeah. So what are you thinking, Greg? It sounds like you're being studious in your thinking. Or did you fall asleep? Or did he stall out?
I think he froze.
No,
He
I
froze
was
drinking
actually
coffee.
thinking,
Your video froze. You look really funny.
oh, I'm back.
He thinks
Am
he's
I
back.
here?
We can hear you, but your screen shows you in mid
Am I
drinking
here?
of your coffee.
Oh.
You're here.
Or his morning scotch.
For the record, it's
There
there
you
you
it's
go.
Earl Grey tea. For the record, Earl Grey tea. No, I was down in Florida this weekend, and my nephew wanted to show me his new Tesla, and so I jumped in it because the leases were so cheap right now, and he got it because he had his 2016 BMW pretty much crapped the bed, which is amazing that the quality is so bad on those things right now. But he really missed the BMW. He's got this brand new Tesla, and he was missing the BMW because the way it looked, the sounds, the noises, the way it drove. He liked the Tesla, but he wasn't passionate about it like he seemed to be about the BMW. Even though it was only a 2016 BMW, he was still much more passionate about that car than he was the Tesla.
Yeah, well, I can appreciate that. But how many people, that's your influence probably, and how many people in the next generations are going to even, appreciate essentially the ICE car experience? I don't know. We'll see. All right. So Greg, you're up for next week for doing the two-car garage. Good luck with that, and make it so that it's not so obviously AI and lame like mine. And good luck topping Paul's stoner story. The fact that you guys didn't take we're really not considering poor old stoner. I mean, in your automotive choices, that's kind of sad. So anything you guys want to round the bend with? Anything you're looking forward to in the following week between now and our next show?
Hopefully I'm going to be leaving tomorrow to our group's annual Treffen in San Ynez. I've got some doctor stuff first that may interfere, but if not, my dad and I are taking Tortuga to San Ynez to hang out with 150 hot rod 911s.
Good luck and God bless on the doctor stuff. So hopefully that goes well. Greg, anything you're looking forward to in particular?
Well, we only have like 4 or 5 weeks left to consign for Monterey, so I'm in the heavy travel visiting folks. I'm headed up to New England, I think next week, then out to St. Louis, and then possibly Minneapolis. So if anybody wants to visit, have some cool cars, let me know. Even if it's just for fun, just to visit. I love seeing cars, and I'm an enthusiast first.
So you get these leads, you get these different collections because you are constantly looking at cars just from referrals from other people. How do you go about having these connections?
A lot of it is based on the database of people who have registered with RM Sotheby's to either buy or sell. And so it's a matter of, picking up the phone, calling them, seeing if they're still in collecting cars. And if I'm going to be in the area, do they want to catch up, have coffee? It's not a sell job. People know what RM Sotheby's does. So if they want my help, they'll ask for it. It's more of just getting together and sharing the passion for cars, and everybody likes to share their stuff, right? And so they love it when somebody comes in who has a higher level of knowledge than the average person on cars. It's more meaningful for them if they share it with someone who knows about what they're sharing, right? If you go see a guy's coin collection, he doesn't know anything about coin. I don't know anything about coins. It's not that big of a deal. But if I love coins, the guy's more engaged, so people really enjoy these types of visits because they get to share their passion with somebody who can really appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate that. And that's the reason people seek you out to represent them at Sotheby's RM auction, because they know you're not placating them, that you're a sincere enthusiast, you know, and that comes out on this podcast too. All right. So next week, if all goes to plan, we're going to have a special guest. We'll hold the special guest and there's going to be a special guest host. We're not going to be doing an interview. We're going to have a fourth participant. It's Paul's early birthday present. He's got a true dyed in the wool Porsche nerd. So Paul will love that. Look how happy he is. All right. So in the meantime, please do like and subscribe to the podcast. Show it with show and sell. Listen, I've been talking to Paul too long about his car sales. Do share it with other folks that you know. We certainly appreciate the continued support. And yeah, guys, if you have any questions or show ideas or suggestions, obviously the best route is for you to message us through Instagram. And when you're there, try to like and subscribe and follow and all the rest of the good stuff. So in the meantime, you guys have a fantastic week. I'll talk with you guys next Wednesday.
Great.
You too.
See you. Bye.